My name is Chloe, and I am 17 years old. I hate that I have to keep going to his house every other week until I turn 18. My mom and brother try to get custody changed, but the judge threatened my mom with jail time if she didn't make me go. It's a joke. Now Lou is pregnant again, this time with my dad's actual child, and she has epilepsy. He wants me to check on her when he's not around, and I refuse. He says I can hate them, but I should want them to be alive and healthy. I told him I didn't care. The text from my dad arrived while I was trying to study for a calculus exam. Need you to stop by the house after school today and check on Lou.
Her nurse isn't coming.
I stared at the message, the words blurring as a familiar. Hot anger rose in my chest. For the last several weeks, these texts had become a regular occurrence. Lou's pregnancy was complicated by her epilepsy, forcing her to stop working and take it easy. My dad, in his infinite wisdom, had decided that I, his 17-year-old daughter whom he had emotionally abandoned for this very woman, should be her designated caretaker. I typed back a single word: no. His reply was instantaneous. Chloe, this isn't a request. It's dangerous for her to be alone. My fingers flew across the screen. Then maybe you should stay home with her. I'm not her nurse. He didn't reply after that, but I knew the fight wasn't over. It never was. This was the new normal in the fractured world my father had created. He had shattered our family for this woman, and now he expected me to help him pick up the pieces. The affair wasn't a secret whispered in corners. It was a bomb that had detonated in the center of our lives. For years, 4, maybe 5, the timeline is a blur of his absences. He was a ghost in our home. He'd miss my brother's baseball games, my school plays, our birthdays. The excuse was always the same. I have to work extra hours. Things are getting so expensive. My mom, who trusted him completely, would nod and tell us to be proud of our hardworking father. It sucked. We missed him, but it was worse when we found out the truth. He wasn't at a late-night shift, he was with Lou. The reveal was a catastrophe. Lou, who was engaged to another man the whole time, got pregnant. She and my dad, assuming the baby was his, decided to come clean. They blew up 2 families in one day. The most twisted part? A paternity test later revealed the baby wasn't even his. Lou's fiancé, understandably, wanted nothing to do with her or the child. So my dad, in a gesture that still makes my head spin, adopted Lou's baby. He chose to raise another man's child with his affair partner while his own biological children were reeling from his betrayal. My brother, who was 17 at the time, took it the hardest. He went no contact the moment he was legally able. I, at 15, was still trapped. The court-ordered custody agreement meant every other week I had to pack a bag and go to his house, a house that never felt like a home. It was a monument to my family's destruction. My mother fought it. We both did. We went to court multiple times. I told the judge I didn't want to see my dad, that he had abandoned us. The judge wouldn't listen. She threatened my mom with loss of custody, even jail, if she didn't comply. My dad was given the same warning. It was a legally mandated nightmare. My brother tried to push back once, refusing to get in the car. My dad called the cops. It was a whole scene, ending with my brother finally giving in, his face a mask of defeat and rage. After that, he counted the days until he turned 18. On his birthday, he packed his things, walked out of my dad's house, and never looked back. Now, it was just me. And my dad and Lou couldn't understand why I didn't want to play happy families. I didn't help with their adopted daughter. I didn't make polite conversation. In family therapy, another court-ordered delight, I told them plainly, I will never be a family with you. The day I turn 18, I'm going no contact, just like my brother. This was the background. This was the war I was living in. I put my phone down and tried to focus on my calculus homework. But my father's hypocrisy gnawed at me. The same dad who was never there for my biggest moments now expected me to show up for the woman for whom he'd missed those events. The arrogance was staggering. I never needed to be there for you, but you must be there for my new wife. He has time to send me dozens of texts ordering me to check on her, but he can't call her himself? I almost laughed. What could possibly be so important? Was he cheating on her, too? That was his pattern after all. Claiming to be busy with work while he was really just skipping out on his family. The thought was so bitter, so perfect that it stuck in my mind. After school, I didn't go to his house. I went to the library, turning my phone off to avoid the inevitable barrage of angry texts. I stayed there until it closed, the quiet hum of the library a welcome respite from the noise in my head. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were 17 missed calls from my dad and a string of increasingly frantic texts. "Chloe, where are you? This isn't a game. Lou could be having a seizure. Is that what you want on your conscience? I'm calling your mother. This is unacceptable." I didn't reply. Let him call her. My mom knew the deal. On her time, he had no control over me. I went home, ate the dinner my mom had left for me, and tried to pretend it was a normal night. But there was no such thing as normal anymore. The next day, the fallout began. My dad showed up at my school. He waited for me by the front gates, his face a thundercloud. "We need to talk," he said, grabbing my arm. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, pulling away. "I'm not your wife's keeper." "This is about respect, Chloe," he hissed, his voice low so other students couldn't hear. "Lou is my wife. She is sick. And you, as my daughter, have a responsibility." "A responsibility?" I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Where was your responsibility when my brother had his championship game? Where was it on my 15th birthday? You were working, right? Or were you with Lou? You don't get to talk to me about responsibility." His face flushed. That was different. "No," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I had suppressed for years. "It's exactly the same. You prioritize what you want. You always have. Well, now I'm prioritizing what I want. And I want nothing to do with you or her." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there amidst the throng of students. It was the first time I had ever truly stood up to him, and while my heart was hammering, I also felt a surge of something powerful. Freedom. That weekend, it was my turn to go to his house. The atmosphere was colder than ever. Lou stayed in her room, and my dad barely spoke to me, his silence a heavy, punishing blanket. I didn't care. I stayed in the guest room, did my homework, and counted the hours until I could leave. On Saturday afternoon, while my dad was out running errands, Lou came out of her room. She looked pale and tired. "Chloe," she said, her voice weak, "can we talk? My father cheated on my mom for years, abandoning my brother and me for his affair partner, Lou. A judge now forces me, a teenager, to visit their house every other week. Lou is pregnant and has epilepsy, and my father has a new demand. He expects me to be her caretaker. He says it's my duty as his daughter, but I say he lost the right to ask for my loyalty a long time ago." I looked up from my book, my expression blank. "About what?" "Your father, he's very worried about me. And he's angry with you. I just want you to know, I never asked him to have you check on me." "Didn't you?" I asked, my voice flat. "No," she said, looking down at her hands. I know our situation is difficult. I know you hate me." "I don't hate you, Lou," I said, and it was the truth. "I just don't care about you. You're the woman my father chose over his own children. Your health, your happiness, it's not my concern. It's his." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know I hurt your family. I live with that every day." "Good," I said, turning back to my book. "You should." The conversation was brutal, but it was honest. Later that day, my dad came home, and the fight I knew was coming finally erupted. He accused me of being cruel, heartless, and selfish. I threw his own words back at him. I told him he had no right to demand loyalty he had never given. "You adopted her daughter?" I screamed, the injustice of it all boiling over. "You chose to raise another man's child, but you couldn't even show up for your own. And now you want me to care for the woman who helped you abandon us? Absolutely not." He was speechless. For the first time, he had no comeback, no lecture on character, no twisted justification. He just stared at me, the truth of my words hanging in the air between us. The next few months were a tense standoff. I fulfilled my court-ordered obligation, spending every other week at his house, but I was a ghost. I was out with friends at the library, anywhere but there. The fight for my time was over. I had won. He could force me to be under his roof, but he couldn't force me to care. My brother's no-contact stance had been an inspiration, but I had found my own way to resist. Not by running, but by staying and being a mirror, reflecting back at them the coldness they had shown me for years. It was a small, bitter victory, but it was mine. The final chapter of the saga began, as it always seemed to, with a phone call. It was my mother, her voice frantic. "Chloe, it's Lou. She had a seizure. Your father just called. They're at the hospital." I was sitting in my room, packing for my weekend at my dad's house. I paused, the t-shirt in my hand. "Is she okay?" I asked, a strange knot forming in my stomach. "I don't know," Mom said. "He was in a panic. He wants you to come to the hospital." "No," I said instantly. "Chloe, please," she begged.
He's your father.
"He's scared." "He should have thought of that before he chose her over us," I said, my voice colder than I intended. But I couldn't stop the words. "He has a wife. He has his new daughter. He doesn't need me." I hung up, but the knot in my stomach remained. I spent the next hour pacing my room, a war raging inside me. Part of me, the part that had been wounded for years, felt a grim satisfaction. This was his problem. Let him deal with it. But another part, the part that still remembered the dad who taught me to ride a bike, felt a flicker of something else. Not sympathy, but connection. In the end, I went. Not for him, not for Lou, but for myself. I needed to see this through to the end. When I arrived at the hospital, my dad was sitting in the waiting room, his head in his hands. He looked up when he saw me, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with a desperation I had never seen before. "Chloe," he whispered, "thank you for coming." "How is she?" I asked, keeping my distance. "She's stable, but they're worried about the baby," he choked out. "They might have to deliver early." He looked so broken, so utterly defeated, that the anger I had carried for years began to soften, just a little. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. He didn't lecture me. He didn't demand anything. He just sat there, a father terrified of losing his child. The doctor finally came out. Lou and the baby, a boy, were both okay. He had been born premature, but he was a fighter. "You can see her now," the doctor said. I followed my dad into the room. Lou was lying in the bed, looking pale but peaceful. In a small incubator beside her, a tiny baby slept. My half-brother. I looked at him, so small and fragile, and I felt nothing. No anger, no resentment, no connection. He was just a baby, an innocent bystander in this war. My dad stood by the incubator, his hand pressed against the glass. "He's so small," he whispered. Tears streamed down his face. I almost lost him. I almost lost her. He turned to me, his eyes filled with a raw, painful clarity. "I'm so sorry, Chloe," he said, his voice breaking. "I was so wrong. About everything. About you, your brother, your mom. I was so focused on what I thought I wanted, this new life, that I destroyed the one I already had. I can't fix what I broke with you and your brother or your mom. I know that now. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be a better father to this little boy. I hope one day you can forgive me." I didn't answer. I just stood there, watching him cry. Forgiveness wasn't a word I was ready for. Maybe I never would be. But as I looked at my father, no longer a tyrant but just a broken man, and at the tiny, innocent baby sleeping in the incubator, I realized that my war was over. I hadn't won. He hadn't won. We had all just lost. I left the hospital that night and drove home. The next morning, I texted him. "I'm glad they're okay." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't an olive branch. It was just an end. I would turn 18 in a few months. My obligation to him would be over. He had a new family now, a new son to focus on. And I had a life to build, free from the ghosts of his choices. I didn't know what the future held for our relationship, if there would even be one. But for the first time, I felt a sense of peace. The fight was over, and I had survived.